Welcome, everyone. I am John Ryan of the Predictive Playbook and Winnable.com, a new website that I am proud to be part of. It's quite a group. They did a successful round of hedge fund angel round of funding. I stumbled there for a second with the names. I should know that because I come from Wall Street. But anyway, they really are on the rise. So make sure you check that site out. And gentlemen, I'm coming off a 30-point win with my 10-unit max bet last night. Sometimes I have to pinch myself and just like, holy, you know what? Dallas, the first half was kind of close, but they were only laying 3 points. And then, I didn't see the end of the game. I woke up to the pleasant news of a 30-point win. And I have to say, I do have a little bit of a heart for the Philadelphia 76ers as my entire life. And it really, really made my heart sing to see Harden go 2 for 12. It really did. But let's not talk basketball now. Let's save that for later because we have Jim Covenbtry in the house, and he is going to take over here and enlighten us with some of the draft takeaways that he saw during the massive amount of fun the draft was. Take it away, Jim.
Man, the Rooney family got their way this offseason. We know they want to play defense. Check. We know they want to run the ball. It's a bit of a struggle last year. Second half, they did better. They started to recommit, but in the draft, oh my goodness. First round, Troy Fatanu. Wow. Offensive tackle, plug-and-play starter. Second round, 19th pick, Zach Frazier, arguably the best center in the draft. Even their fourth-round pick, Mason McCormick, he has a good chance of maybe settling in as a starter. Now, it might take a little time for this line to gel. You put 3 new potential players on there. They dumped a lot of the dead weight in the offseason. We know they brought in Arthur Smith. My one worry with Arthur Smith was last year, his running game in Atlanta faltered. Why? Here's why. Arthur Smith did not realize as the league has gone to lighter boxes, the defenses learned how to shoot gaps and stop things. So what happened with Arthur Smith, he didn't do what Sean McVay figured out. Zone runs were no longer as successful unless you had a dominant running scheme or player. And McVay figured out you run downhill. Now, if Arthur Smith comes in to Pittsburgh, he has Najee Harris. He has Jaylen Warren. He has a rebuilt line. He has a commitment from the team to run the ball. If he does not make some adjustments and he continues to run the basic zone concepts that worked well a few years ago, it'll be a problem. But if he can change at the times, my goodness, this could be like the 1970 Steelers again. Maybe not the fearsome defense, but the defense is pretty good.
I will definitely say, with the Steelers in mind here, let's talk to Rudy, since he is one of the biggest Steeler fans I know outside of my family, that is. Let's see what he has to say about his takeaways with the Steelers.
Well, you know what? They're all great picks. I like that Troy Fontanu pick out of Washington. The guy's an absolute beast, plug-and-play guy. You stated it very well, Jim. More importantly, I look at the center position. Center position Steelers have always known to have grabbed fantastic centers historically between Webster, Pouncey, and here it comes now Zach Frazier, a guy who has dominated at West Virginia, not too far away from home, from Pittsburgh. So finds himself in kind of an interesting hodgepodge plug-and-play moment where you get to start. I think he will. I think he's a great starter. That was a fantastic pick. Roman Wilson, that was kind of a reach, I believe, as a wide receiver. He does have great hands. Hand-eye coordination is fabulous. He does have solid reach. Just an athlete overall. Very, very well done by Michigan coming off that national championship. Peyton Wilson, defense, this guy is an absolute beast. And then when you look at Mason McCormick, a guard out of South Dakota State, the guy is just a man-moving machine. He's huge. He's absolutely gigantic. And the other side of the ball, Logan Lee, who sniffed it out, switching black and gold from Iowa black and gold to now Steelers black and gold. I don't think he'll be missing any wardrobes anytime soon. He's an absolute fantastic player, smart, well-placed IQ. They acquired Patrick Queen in free agency, which will play alongside of him. And, of course, Ryan Watts, the guy just blowing everything up off the line of scrimmage. He can get in the backfield. This is a great pick, probably one of the best drafts for Pittsburgh. And who knew that Omar Khan would come in and not only release some players, do some contractual, reshuffling in order to get these guys to to want to be dressed up as Pittsburgh Steelers for probably a better part of their career. Kudos to Omar Khan for getting this done, because I think it was a great con job by Omar for the Steelers, and Mike Tomlin, who gets what he wants as well.
Good stuff, Rudy. I had 2 bets that I put in for the draft, and one lost, one won. It was over wide receivers, and I played under quarterbacks. And I have to admit, that was a contrarian bet that I really liked a lot. And for some reason, look what Kirk Cousins has to face now. Instead of improving the team, he's I guess he has to mentor this kid, this young man. That blew my mind. But my question for Chris here, and we can all answer it, is that in the last time that we had a draft of quarterbacks this size was 1983, I believe. Guys like Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, and a few names that didn't make the Hall of Fame. So does it make sense that of this group, and it's hard for me to see any of them going to the Hall of Fame. I guess you could say the same thing about 1983 draft too, that those players that were drafted was kind of like, Dan Marino went what, 28th? And look how he turned out. But of all the quarterbacks that were drafted, do you see any, Chris, that have the potential to be a franchise tag type of quarterback and leader and, earn the reputation of being the GOAT?
This is where it gets tough because, I started looking and I had gotten a few questions before the draft about, obviously, some quarterback from Michigan that everybody kept pinning to the Giants. How'd that turn out? No. Although the Giants did try to move up allegedly, if you read between the tea leaves, they weren't moving up for that quarterback. They were moving up for the quarterback that New England actually took, and Mr. May. Look, May has the arm strength. Caleb Williams has enough talent to be a good quarterback in this league. Unfortunately, he's playing for Chicago. That's rough just because of the expectations. And look, Chicago over the last 40 years, name the amount of good quarterbacks that have lasted more than a couple years for the Bears. One of the best ones won 1 Super Bowl, and then literally the rest of his career was spent as his body fell apart.
Mr. McMahon.
Heartbreaking. For anybody that hasn't read the Jim McMahon story, you need to. It's very sad. All the things that went wrong and are still going sadly wrong with him. And yet he still has this attitude of like, I'm going to keep fighting no matter, and you have to admire it. You do. It's really amazing. But overall in this draft, you had 6 quarterbacks go in the first 12 picks.
It's crazy.
I couldn't believe it. I thought about taking, John, like you, I thought about taking the under. I really did.
Under 4.5 looked like a lock to me.
And then I just stepped away. The one that hits that people should just be amazed by was the backdoor wide receiver prop. This didn't just hit backdoor. This hit backdoor. You had 3 picks go in the final 5 selections. Wow.
That's why I don't watch it.
I'm telling you, the best thing to do is you find a number you like on a few bets, place them, set it, and forget it. Because the draft takes a life of its own. Was I surprised that the Giants took a wide receiver after Joe Alt went 5th? Not at all. I thought
that was a good pick.
Look, Neighbors is going to.
By Giants standards, it was a great pick.
But yeah, by Giants standards, probably the best pick in the last couple decades. Being honest.
You could probably say the same thing about Arizona with Marvin Harrison Jr. There's certain teams, certain organizations where players go to die. And I don't mean that literally. I mean that figuratively. They're playing career. their ability to build some, stock in what they're trying to accomplish and have people rally around them. And one of those is going to be Caleb Williams. Yeah, he did great at USC, and that's great and wonderful, but there is no fundamental foundation there in Chicago, as you mentioned, Chris. But more importantly, how about that head scratcher by the Atlanta Falcons pulling the trigger for Penix? That is absolutely insane. And here's why. So my thought process is that Rattler was liked by the Broncos and the Falcons, which is great. They're both quarterback needed teams. There was a mid-second label as well as an early third round-ish. But then the Broncos pulled the trigger and grabbed Bo Nix, who I think is a great fit there in Denver. No doubt about it. But that nixed any chance to select Rattler at 12, right? So here comes the Falcons picking Penix at 8, despite already having Kirk Cousins, who's back there scratching his head, wondering, wait, what? And I signed here for what reason? No, okay, he could have stayed in Minnesota, and everything would have been all well and dandy. And, of course, the solid businessman that he is, he would have got a fabulous contract, most of it up front. And if he lost, well, oops. Here's the problem with that logic is that now that's the reason why they grabbed Penix in Atlanta, is because they knew that Kirk Cousins is who he has played himself to be. Great businessman, great locker room guy, but is he going to go in the Hall of Fame? Unless he wins the title, probably not. Penix has a better opportunity to be the starter, but at least they have some. It's going to be an interesting battle to watch between QB1 and QB2. We'll find out who that is at training camp. But don't forget Ian Book, who I interviewed at the Super Bowl just a couple of years ago, drafted by the New Orleans Saints, now picked Rattler as their quarterback, which is very odd because, again, another place where quarterbacks go to, to play in mediocrity instead of playing to their strengths. Is that Mickey Loomis's fault? Well, maybe. You can blame that to all the draft guys and the capitalists there within the organization to say, did we make enough money to move around? Of course, Loomis does it every year. It's not a big shocker, not a huge surprise. But my question is this: will Rattler be that guy, or will he be another Ian Book who now finds himself on the Kansas City Chiefs roster as a backup to Patrick Mahomes? That's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see what the camp battles look like there in both situations.
The only thing more insane than what these teams have done is the betting line for the Bears wins totals over 8.5 is up to -150 juice.
Whoa.
I don't care how big a Bear fan you are. You do not want to make that bet now. You got to wait. Maybe they lose opening day and you'll get it at 8.5 -110. That's I don't think I can remember a line at -150 juice at this time of the betting cycle with wins. But Marvin Harrison, yeah. So another team that the VIG is up to -140 over 6.5, the Cardinals. I had said it on the show the last time we were together. I'm taking Harrison with my second pick in the snake draft in my league. And the league is listening. That you know what I'm going to do. So if you want to steal him and be a jerk, then go do it. But seriously, I think he's going to be obviously the number one. And I think Kyler Murray is better than advertised. I think this could be a breakout season. And you know what? If he doesn't, Harrison's still going to catch a boatload of passes. So I really like that situation. Let's talk a little bit about the Eagles, because they seem to be getting all of the notoriety again that Howie Rosen did it again. And maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But what I can't get my hands around year after year after year is all of a sudden they make this pick, any team, and all of a sudden that pick is the savior. That pick is going to make the difference. They draft a cornerback. He hasn't played in the Power 5 conference, with all due respect. He's from, Toledo, right? Okay, he on paper and the combine, he looks like a stud and probably the steal of the draft, thanks to all the other confusing draft picks that allowed the Eagles to sit there, not even have to draft lower, and they had the three top cornerbacks right in their lap. And that, I thought, was a gift from the NFL gods that the Eagles had that luxury. I mean, that really was. But how in the world can we evaluate a kid that apparently on paper at the college level was incredible and translate that immediately to the NFL, which is much, much faster, much more complex, more difficult, and assume that he going to be the starting quarterback and all pro material. I can't understand that. But
well, Philly plays a lot of zone, and zone basically keeps the man coverage down. The NFL right now is 75% zone. So with rookie corners, Cooper DeJean, I don't know if he'll play slot corner. I don't know if they'll move him to safety, but very good prospect as well. But zone will help these players. Now, my big thought is, and again, I'm not an NFL coach, but James Bradbury clearly slipped last year. He'd be a perfect candidate to move to safety. They got him under contract, bigger corner, and playing that free safety role. That we've seen it done, but it's been decades since that was like players at the end of their career. The best poster child for that was Rod Woodson. I'm not saying that's the case, but we see it. The players can make that transition. That would help them because safety is still a weak point. I know they had Ringo. They invested a 3rd round pick in him last year, and the linebacker play is still going to be a problem. Look, this defense is far from cured, but bringing in talent is never a bad thing. And we don't know if these players are going to translate. But again, like I said, zone cures a lot of ills. Remember, this Eagles team built up their offense in the offseason. They brought in Saquon Barkley. That gives them, between A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and of course, Jalen Hurts, they're going to try to win in shootouts. So maybe the players they added will help them not have to score 37 points, maybe just 34 points.
That's great stuff, Jim. The concern I have with the Eagles is that offense is going to be so good that it reminds me of the Atlanta Falcons when they lost in the Super Bowl to the Patriots. And one of the things that happened to the Falcons was that defense was on the field a ton of minutes in that first half, even though the score was 21-3 or 28-3, that they were fatigued. And I'm concerned with the Eagles being a weak unit, maybe average NFL unit, that this Eagles offense is going to put up 35 or more points just about every single game, even against a defense like the Cowboys or even if I don't even know if the Steelers are on the schedule, but I could see them scoring 31 against that great defense. If they score really quick, that defense is going to put in more minutes per game, and time of possession is going to be lopsided in Eagle games. You think I'm right with that, Rudy, or is that just conjecture?
All of that is very subjective, and here's why. Steelers didn't look very good against the Bills in their offensive, efforts. That they got basically exposed on every single level. However, the look on Kenyon Mitchell's face when he was drafted by the Eagles didn't exactly exude confidence, at least based on what I had witnessed coming to the stage.
That too.
His head is half up, his eyes are kind of down and going up and shifting up. That doesn't give me the body language or the encouragement. If I was an Eagles fan looking at that type of activity, wondering, ooh, okay, maybe he doesn't want to play here. Maybe not. I don't know. Perception's 2020. However, he's probably one of the best out of the NFL draft, in my opinion. You look at Cooper DeJean, who I'm shockingly saying this, that he fell 40th overall. It's unbelievable. The guy is absolutely solid, but with him and Mitchell playing in that same defensive line, both of these guys are equipped to be plug and play. There's no doubt about it, at least not in my mind. But then you go and you grab Will Shipley out of Clemson. Okay, right. So that's going to solve whatever ills you're looking for in the running back position. Yeah, good luck with that. Why? Because a lot of teams found a way to get pressure in the backfield on Jalen Hurts, not only in midseason, but near postseason run as well. I mean, okay, great. Eagles had a solid draft. I just don't know that Jalen Hurts is going to have enough weaponry. Yeah, they re-signed A.J. Brown to this massive contract and blah, 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 but that was the only guy. What happened to the rest of their receiving core? Where's the money split up between those guys who performed in the regular season? Didn't the defense falter? Yes, they did. So they went after two guys, yet didn't pay the weaponry they had other than A.J. Brown on that offensive line. That's kind of a problem. I think it's going to be the same old in Philadelphia, barely running above 500 in 2024.
Well, the market is telling me something too, that the expectations in Philly is astronomically high, just like it is every year. But I think it's even higher. Like it's gotten to altitudes never achieved. The betting market, over 10.5 wins, plus 110 to bet over. How many times do you see plus money? What do public bettors like to do? the fans will bet their team and, oh, absolutely, the Eagles are going to win 13 games. The Steelers are going to win X amount of games. It's always over. So this tells me that some of the smart money is more than likely betting the under 10.5. Not to say they don't get in the playoffs, but this could be a very, very, pivotal season for the head coach and the staff, and even Jalen Hurts. They're all in. There's no question about it. I actually like the under. Am I going to bet it? I haven't bet it yet, but I kind of like I like the intrigue of that contrarian bet.
I'm close. 10 wins seems almost like right there.
Well, you're a Giants fan. You hate the Eagles.
Yeah, that's my job.
Look, I'm excited about Kellen Moore coming in. I know a lot of people trash him. I think like last year when Mike Williams got hurt in week 3 and then Austin Eckler playing on a high ankle, those first 3 games, the Chargers were scoring through the roof. And you bring him in, Brian Johnson, that offense was rolling until defenses made an adjustment and they realized he wanted to throw downfield. They took it away. Brian Johnson didn't have one single adjustment. That offense died at the vine because he did not know how to coach an NFL offense. Kellen Moore will work. He works a system where he attacks downfield so that everything underneath opens up, and then he, pounds away at that. And with the personnel he has, I really do believe he is going to get a lot more out of this offense than obviously Brian Johnson. Anybody can, but this is a really big upgrade for them. I agree with you guys that the defense is going to be a big problem still. They're not getting it fixed. They're nowhere really close. Like the spine of the defense is a real problem, but I'm very optimistic for their scoring ability because coaching does matter.
I think that you just put this thought in my head, Jim. I think the Eagles actually could lead the league in yards of separation on offense and defense. It's actually one of the important metrics over the last 5 years in my model that has gained weight each year successively. So that will be interesting to watch. It's going to be track meets. I can't even imagine, is there going to be a total under 50 in an Eagles game? I doubt it.
Unless they're playing the Giants.
Well, yeah, I guess, it's a division rivalry.
Yeah,
anyway,
the week one game against week 1 against the Packers, it's 48.5. Green. Now it's on an international soil. I think it's in
Brazil.
South America, Brazil. So right now, I think realistically, Packers Eagles over 48.5. I'm going to go to the window show, and I think I'm going to put a little bit down on that.
Or the team total. I mean, the team total's got to be around under 27, right?
Oh, the team total. Yeah, it's the line's 1.5, so it's going to be close to half of that. So 25?
25. Yeah, 25.5. Yeah, I love it.
Wow.
They could score that in the first half, for God's sake. Saquon has 5 touchdowns, and now I'm talking nonsense. But
one quick point, too. When they played the games in Mexico City, which is not where they're playing, Mexico City had that extreme elevation, which defenses died in the second half. The elevation is very standard and very normal where they're playing this game. I looked that up just to make sure. So don't automatically assume because the game's in South America, the elevation's high. But I still love the over, but I just want people to know that's an angle not to play for the elevation purposes.
Yep. Good point. Cleveland Browns, Jim, I know you like them quite a bit this season, and I'm with you on this. And tell us why you like the over 8.5, because I think this team could win 10 or 11 games.
They win 11 last year with 4 quarterbacks. So we know they can win without Deshaun Watson. We already know that. And he's on the field. He played decently in his last 2 games. That last game when he got hurt against Baltimore, he brought them back from deficits against a very, very good defense. The week prior against Arizona, he was beginning to look like he was figuring things out. He's not going to be a great quarterback again. We understand that. But can he be average? Average would make a big difference here. Nick Chubb, they played without him last year, week 2. In the first or second quarter, he went down, so they played without him. Now, at some point, maybe he goes on the pup, but Nick Chubb, even if he's 75, 80% of what he was, that's an upgrade. The offensive line was completely decimated last year. And again, they were playing with third-string tackles at some point and winning 11 games. As of right now, the line is healthy. They should get everybody back there. And defense, they brought the band back. And Myles Garrett played hurt down the stretch. That really is what undid Cleveland from being able to make real noise, is once he was playing with that limited shoulder injury, that really decimated the pass rush, which made the cover corners who played about 44% man, it made them have to cover longer, and it just didn't work. But this year, you have to assume you're not going to have that level of injury bad luck, because it was the worst possible scenario, and they won 11 games. So that's simply put. The defensive coaching, Schwartz is back there again. He's going to continue to bring the pressure, and I'm just optimistic that Watson can be adequate, and that's enough. And they bring in Jerry Jeudy. Now, Elijah Moore, the plan was last year to get him involved, run after the catch. 30th percentile yards after the catch for Elijah Moore. Now, Jerry Jeudy may not be very good, but the one thing he can do is run after the catch. He was 86th percentile last year in a bad Denver offense. I think all these things together, this team is probably a little bit better than they were last year, and that team won 11 games. They only got to get to 9 to cash. I already went to the window to play that one.
I love it. I'm with you 100% on that. That's actually, if we had a best bet for the show for today for wins totals, I think it's Cleveland. And, another one that I would recommend staying away from is New England Patriots over 4.5. That, with Derek May, that is a wild card. I mean, they could easily win 5. But do you want to pay minus 160 VIG? No, you don't. There's a lot of different ways to play the wins total, using a money line rollover, because Patriots are going to be dogs more times than they're favorites. So when they're dogs, use money line when you think they're going to win the game, and then just keep rolling it over. That makes a better return than laying minus 160 and having to wait, maybe it only take 5 weeks for the Patriots to win 5 games.
It's a long season. Wow. It's a long season. You have May to contend with. I mean, they really have an uphill battle as far as getting things fundamentally sound there in New England. It's not going to surprise me to see them, move on from the systemic issues that had plagued them last year with Bill Belichick, as a head coach and GM, and maybe the popcorn guy behind the counter at a movie theater. But I mean, look, anything's possible with New England, with Gerard Mayo. You have a new GM. You have all types of moving pieces that could bring this team out of mediocrity a lot sooner than later. I don't know that it's going to happen this year, because you have teams that are really beefing up. The Bills still own the NFC East, at least for the last 5 seasons since Tom Brady retired. So it's going to be interesting to see what this New England team looks like. But talking about the Browns for half a minute, you'd mentioned if Watson can play mediocre. Yeah, I think that at best he's a mediocre quarterback, not the same guy as he was at Houston. We all remember the numbers that he put up there. Completion interception ratio. You look at all those numbers, fabulous. But what has he done since then? Nothing really. And other than getting injured, I guess that's the only notable items to that effect. And for all intents and purposes, I like Deshaun Watson just from the extent of what he used to be and not where he is right now. But the Browns drafted really good. They grabbed Michael Hall Jr., a defensive tackle out of Ohio State. He's a plug-and-play guy. I didn't think last year that Myles Garrett had the year that T.J. Watt did in the AFC North, or in the NFL for that matter. I think the voters got that one wrong. I think T.J. Watt clearly robbed of that Defensive Player of the Year award, but that's neither here nor there. Why? Because, it's a whole nother year to prove those voters wrong. But they did beef up. I don't think that Zach Zinter was a horrible pick. I think it was an okay pick. But it wasn't what they could have done, at least in the second round. But, they did get some good guys, Nathaniel Wilson out of Mississippi State, Miles Harden out of South Dakota, and then Jawan Briggs, who could be a wild card of 7th round out of Cincinnati. These guys are the Wilson, Harden, and Briggs are your diamonds in the rough for Cleveland anyway. And of course, the longer the rounds go on, the more gems you're going to have to shine up and make sure that coal's pressed in order for them to be what you want them to be.
Good stuff, Rudy. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take 2 minutes and talk about an NBA game, if that's all right with you guys.
2 minutes?
Chris is going to hate it. He's going to either
just turn hurt
completely red like a red apple, or he'll sign off. But nevertheless, it's all fun. The Sixers had a tremendous win the other night, down 6 with 29 seconds to go, and lo and behold, they win in overtime. So, of course, when these events happen, you guys know how I think. For those that are listening for the first time, you don't. And thank God for that, I guess. But seriously, when I see something like that, I want to know what happens next. Like when this has happened previously in history, what happens next in the playoffs? And it's all numbers. I mean, the Knicks could easily win tonight and send the Sixers home, but that emotional loss like that, you cannot quantify with any data whatsoever. And I think that was a situation where I think the Knicks players, their body language with a 6-point lead in 29 seconds was starting to celebrate. And then all of a sudden you get, your face ripped off, and now you got to go to Philly. It's not going to be 35% Knicks fans in the stands either, because I believe a couple corporations, from what I hear, bought tickets to prevent that from happening. It's a shame they have to do that. The fan base in Philly is quite strong. But when you're offered the opportunity as a season ticket holder, and I've done it, where you can get thousands upon thousands of dollars for one game, I can't fault those people for doing it. It's smart business, because then you have money to buy the tickets next year. And the tickets aren't cheap. They definitely are not cheap. But here's what I have for tonight's game, and I've already exceeded the 2 minutes. Joel Embiid had his 7th career triple-double in Game 5. So what happens after he has a triple-double? It's following a game in which he posted a triple-double. The 76ers are 4-3 straight up, 4-3 against the spread, 5-2 over. So with that total at 199.5, that might be a look. In games following, Embiid having a double-double in a road game has seen the Sixers go 18-6 straight up, 16-8 against the spread, 67% winners when at home, and priced as a 3.5 to 9.5 point favorite, and playing on 1 day of rest, which they are. And rest is important for Embiid right now, no question. Betting algorithms gone 73% straight up and 60% against the spread over the last 5 years. You're betting on home favorites. Sixers are 3.5 point favorite. Facing a guest that is shooting 46% or better from the field, the guest is also out-rebounding their opponents by 3 or more in the season. And if you don't know this, the Knicks are and have been the best rebounding team in the NBA all season long. In the game is in the second half of the season, this algorithm has gone 74% straight up, 62% against the spread. And if our home team's priced between a 3.5 and 9.5 point favorite, 73% straight up, 67% against the spread over the last 5 seasons. Chris, I mean, no disrespect, but I think the Sixers get it done. I still kind of think the Knicks will get it done in 7.
It's been a strange series. It really has. One bright side, though, is...
Well, the officiating's been horrid.
That's expected.
I mean, it was like Angel Hernandez being out there in the basketball court.
Worse. It was actually worse. I didn't think it was possible, but I mean, and look, both sides have lots to gripe about. I get it. But at this point, you're just going to have to play. That's it. I mean, and the other thing, the other variable why the Knicks lost, and I don't even attribute it to the 6-point lead, John, they missed 10 foul shots.
Hart was bad with that set the stage.
Yeah, that you have to. You
set the stage.
You have to make your shots. When you don't do that, it often snowballs. I understand this is part and parcel of how these things go. I'm with you tonight. I do think that the Sixers do get this done. That over is wow. I think tempting. I think you see it like just creep slightly over 200 at the last.
It opened at 200.5,
and it came back.
I'm surprised that it actually went down.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought it might even like inch up a half point or point perhaps, but no, not going to happen. And it doesn't. You want to get in on that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
You really do.
Jim, I know you're an NFL focused individual and professional. Did you watch any of that game by chance in the NBA?
Unfortunately, I don't. I'm so laser focused on the NFL, and I try to balance out the rest of my life because it's like 12 months a year NFL. So yeah, I'll once I go down the rabbit hole, I'd be done. So I can't do it.
I watch it quite frequently. I'll be honest with you. When you look at the NBA season, the Knicks were poised to win that game. When you look at what they did down the stretch, you get into the fourth quarter, they kind of falter. I think they let their foot off the gas pedal. There were a lot of missed opportunities. But then for the 76ers, Tobias Harris got, he was part of the party at eight rebounds, 1 assist. Kelly Oubre, 4 points, no assist. And then Joel Embiid, 16-10. Maxey, 5-9. There are some kind of minuscule numbers. These guys played a ton of minutes, and your body takes a toll when you're playing 30-plus minutes, 40-plus minutes, almost 50 minutes, as we've seen Tobias Harris play. His production didn't really warrant having him on the court, but defensively, he certainly did the job as a forward for the 76ers. So did the New York Knicks take their foot off the gas pedal a little too soon? Yes, they absolutely did. They got a little wrapped up in the champagne and, knocking them out and moving on to the next round. Oh, here we go. Rewind that wonderful bean footage. And then here comes the 76ers just basically taking them to the woodshed, winning this, and basically shocked everybody at Madison Square Garden. I believe the Knicks would probably have moved on in this game, but now here we are. The Philadelphia 76ers are going to find a way to even this series up, which so far has been a fabulous series. Yes, you have players looking for fouls at every single, in every single way, from the referees putting your hands up, saying, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't foul the guy. It doesn't really work that way. I mean, you can cry and whine to the refs all you want to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be that guy, who's going to get that call going your way, because we know that typically doesn't happen. And when it does, it has to be in the watchful eye of the referee at that point where it's clearly blatant. It's way too obvious. But when you go on to win this 112-106 at Madison Square Garden, a very hostile, physical game between, well, basically everybody. You've seen Brunson getting whacked by Joel Embiid. There's just so much to like about the defensive efforts of both of these teams going down the stretch, which predominantly in the NBA landscape, you don't see a whole lot of. You just don't. And it was just a very, very good game. Josh Hart, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. Anunoby had 6 rebounds, no assists. Hartenstein had 7. There's something to like about this matchup that you don't find in the NBA, where these teams know how to play defense. And that's one of the reasons why they're in the position they're in right now, going on to play, I think, a decisive game where the Knicks could ultimately, if their foot is on the pedal from the onset of this game, from tip-off, could find a way to win it.
And it's going to be a great game. There's going to be scoring volatility, as I like to say. So if you like the Knicks or you like the Sixers, let that scoring volatility work for you. And many times they'll have 10-point runs that are unanswered, followed by a timeout, and that's your chance to bet the team that was dished out the 10-point deficit in the scoring board. That live betting strategy sets up really, really well for a game like this, especially when you think it's going to be decided in that last 30 seconds, because you have a chance then to win all of them. So I might do that with some pizza money tonight while I'm watching, but I'm really disappointed. The game starts at 9.
It is rough.
Pacers, Milwaukee is in the middle of the country, right? They're start at 6:30.
Yeah. They're at 6:30.
But,
wow.
The West Coast people need to get their jobs done. Like, Rudy needs to complete his day, and then he has an hour to prepare to watch the game. At 6 o'clock, he'll be eating dinner, and the game will come on.
I know dinner by the time the game is on anyway. So, yeah, you're about right there.
Well, I used to remember this, many times on the West Coast. The classic was, the late in the season, come April before the playoffs, you'd have like the NBA matinees follow right beside the NHL matinee. That was great. You woke up, you ate breakfast, and at 9:30 there was hockey and basketball on from early in the day till about 10:30 at night. It was beautiful.
Wow, poetry in motion reminds me of Christmas Day nowadays.
Yeah,
when you have tons of
the last it's called 4 minutes, and we'll end the show. Little baseball talk. You guys remember I put out a bet on Trey Turner to be the MVP. I wish this was September 2nd and he was batting .364. He's not, but the Phillies really are kicking butts and taking names. I mean, their starting rotation is basically 6 pitchers. And they got decisions to make about 2 of them, obviously, to go to the bullpen. But they were the first to 20, now 21 wins. Mm-hmm. And they have it rolling. Alec Boehm's having a breakout season so far, batting like close to 350. And they seem to be going well. So I do like that Trey Turner bet here, and I think that's still a good price to bet him now. I mean, he's just seeing the ball ridiculously well, like he did in the World Classic last year when he batted, I guess, well over 400 in that thing. But in terms of baseball, are there any like real surprises? The surprise is the Astros, in my opinion. They've won 4 or 5 in a row now, but they're still like 8 games under 500. But they're in that AL West where they're probably only trailing by like maybe 5.5 games. So is it time to tell Houston that they have a problem, or are they going to be okay?
I think Houston has a problem. I think it's a batting problem. Don't bet your eyes too quickly. This is a marathon and not a short-term race. This is something where it's going to take, over 100 games to get through. This is not the easiest schedule. They have to go on the road. They have to play at home. I wonder what the record they're going to have by mid-season. But what doesn't really surprise me, and I hate to say this, of course, I'm from Southern California, but I look at guys like Mike Trout continues to be injury prone. That doesn't really surprise me. What surprises me is that they didn't clean house after Ohtani said bye-bye and went across, down the 91 of the 405 and found his way into a Dodger blue uniform to trade off Mike Trout. And I said this yesterday, that your best bet is to trade off Mike Trout when the deadline comes, which we don't know when that's going to be, when he's actually going to get back from IR or IL, as they call it in Major League Baseball. So Mike Trout, I think, is the most disappointing player so far to go down with injuries. He's been injured more than he's actually played. I think it's 249 games, which is not a whole lot within the last 3 seasons. So that doesn't say a whole lot for a guy who's been the 2-time MVP and a guy who just struggles to stay injury-free. And if they don't do anything by the trade deadline, the new manager there for the Angels needs to be fired. I just don't know what else you're going to do with this Angels franchise now that your franchise player, you had 2, now you only have 1, and now you have none. That's going to be on the field. So very interesting moves.
And the Phillies won 2-1 last night. And I, reviewing the game this morning, I couldn't help but to think Trout would have been up there in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
With guys on first and third.
Yep. He said he didn't hear anything there, but you know how that goes. Meniscus are like the silent killer. You don't notice anything because the adrenaline's pumping, but then once that decreases, it's over.
That's what happened to Embiid. That's exactly the same injury.
Same with any other player.
And it's more than likely a restructure, so you're looking at 3 to 4 months minimum.
Oh, minimum. Absolutely minimum. I don't think Embiid should even be on the court right now. I've seen him hobbling.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, look.
And he has Bell's palsy.
That was the other concern.
He can't close his left eye.
Yeah, you could actually see it. What was it in overtime, John?
Yep.
One of the timeouts, you could actually see Embiid like near the coach, and it's like
the whole left side of his face sags.
This looks like the guy with the glass eye from the Last Action Hero. I mean, it was really eerie to look at, and people are asking me like, "What's wrong with this?" I was like, "He has Bell's palsy." I mean, on top of everything else, it's like, well, how the heck does he see? I was like, well, that's part of the reason why he clocked a certain nick. He can't see.
And he still put up 50.
Yeah, still put up 50.
He's averaging 35 in the series, 10 rebounds, 6 assists.
You would think the Knicks would figure this out by now.
You know what's more amazing?
They keep leaving him open beyond the 3, and that's one little prop that I like tonight. Embiid made threes is over 1.5.
You got it.
He's going to make 2. Well, the Sixers are going to lose. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems obvious he's going to make 2 or more. They're leaving him wide open on the perimeter to shoot it. Anyway.
By the way, guys,
he's still going to kill you. You may as well call him lucky.
Yeah.
Lost in the Houston mess. Other than the fact that Jose Abreu was hitting, I kid you not, 0.99.
That is mind-blowing.
So Now we were all a lot of people in Southern California. I know this for a fact, Rudy. Were joking about the whole Mike Trout, stat line of 10 home runs and 13 RBIs because believe me, it was plastered all over X.
Mm-hmm.
But very quietly, Jose Altuve is having a nice season, and yet the same kind of thing is happening. 7 home runs, 10 RBIs, while hitting 341.
He's 20 to 1 to win the MVP.
I mean, he has look, obviously Houston has to get 500 first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first problem. They can't win at home. At least that was the rap early in the season when they got, well, not bombed by the Yankees, but they found interesting ways to lose.
Very close games.
But it's weird. It's like they just keep like the worst one obviously was the Kansas City series. I get that. It's just all over the place. You just don't know what team you're going to get with them.
Not yet. And they don't have their identity is not set. We hear about where teams are at right now in the early parts of the season. NFL teams are just starting their workouts. We don't know. Everything looks great on paper, but let's be honest. When you put that to action, they could look like a very different team, and that could go extremely poorly or that can go extremely well. But as we know that the onset of the game, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And right now, these teams are basically crawling before they can walk, and the Astros are crawling right now.
They sure are. I'm looking at National League Cy Young, and then I'll let you guys go here in the last minute. Zach Wheeler is actually the favorite. He doesn't have a winning record. He's plus 275. Wow. Phillies ace. Then we have Ranger Suarez at 14 to 1, who is arguably the best, one of the best pitchers right now on the planet. He's 5-0.
He's ridiculous.
I think the ERA is just over 1, and he's a lefty, and he's making batters look really, really stupid. Whether that continues or not is another issue, but he's third man in the rotation with Aaron Nola being the second one. He's 16 to 1. So Ranger Suarez is going to be going up against the number 3 starters of basically the opponents. And who's to say that he doesn't win 20 and have an ERA of 2? I mean, I think that's where the bet is anyway. Any final thoughts baseball wise? And I'll send you guys on your way.
The Pirates, as disappointing as they have been for, ever, are 14 and 18. And we're talking about crawling here. This number's not indicative of what their season's going to look like. There have been stretches where they've actually looked really, really good. They start a series tomorrow against Colorado, but they're not playing well away, and they're not playing really well at home. But when you look at the differentials at -17 for the games that they have lost, that's really not bad. I mean, yeah, they've lost 4 in a row, and 3 and 7 in the last 10, but that doesn't the numbers aren't disparaging. You look at the Pirates, you think to yourself, man, they have one of the lowest amounts of money available, and they don't get the best players, and that really hasn't been the case in the offseason for Pittsburgh. I like where they're trending right. Yeah, they're last in the division of 14 and 18. That's not indicative of who this team is going to be. They have new pieces. They have to fit. The Cardinals find themselves in very similar territory. The Reds just started a series against Baltimore. I mean, look, the bottom line is that this is a complete race, triathlon, heptathlon, whatever you want to call a lawn. You're going to find these guys on the lawn unless they continue to hit dingers in the lawn. But I think this is going to be a great season as it progresses. I think the Pirates will find themselves a little bit better off, and what we look at in the middle of the season may not be indicative of what we're looking at this point.
You think they win 73 games? That's the betting market, 72.5.
I think so. I think they will.
I think so too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm really as long as they can put the tools in the right shed, they're good.
What do you think, Chris?
I get the easy part of this because look, I hammered the Mets under when it was all the way up at, I don't know, 87.5. Thank God. Somebody had a bad day at DraftKings, clearly. On the bright side, there is a team that is legitimately going to set land speed records for futility. And that, of course, is not the Oakland A's, guys. I will say this. I don't know how long this is going to continue, but Mark Kotsay somehow manages to continue this crazy thing. It's going to be something. It really is.
Well, you just segued yourself right into my final comment. And I'll quickly mention this because this is a system to fade bad teams like the Chicago White Sox, who doubled their wins to 6 with a sweep over the Tampa Bay Rays, which that was mind-blowing in itself. But the date I'm going to share with you here is the White Sox have just 6 wins. I've mentioned that already. Fading anemic teams that have 10 or fewer wins in the month of May when priced as a road dog of 175 and greater. And believe me, the White Sox will be 175 and greater quite a bit. This also applies to the Miami Marlins because they don't have 10 wins either. That's produced a 70-21 record fading those bad teams, averaging a 242 bet. Now, I'm not advising anybody to wager minus 242 in baseball, but over the last 10 years, this has produced a 27% ROI and has not had a losing season to date. A dime bettor has made $24,150 just in the last 5 seasons doing this. The run line would be a better way to play it, but then you're reducing your ROI down to 19%, and the dime bettor making $13,700. So Marlins and Rockies actually are on the list, along with the White Sox. And anytime they're a road dog at 175 or more, consider a fade.
It's going to be a lot because they're 1-13 on the road.
Rudy Reyes, tell us where everyone can see your great work and what you're up to in Southern California.
Well, actually, I'm not in Southern California. I'll be on the Central Coast as a news reporter for KSBY. Everybody can go to
Congratulations.
KSBY News. Thank you. I appreciate that. So follow along at KSBY News. Of course, throw me a follow as well. Heck, at Rude Dog Reyes on Twitter. And go to the RudeDogShow.com. I had a great conversation with a Steelers camp invite. We'll see what that looks like as we move forward. Or find me on Instagram, Rudy Reyes. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok at the Rude Dog Show, and anywhere else you can possibly plug yourself into to find me. So, yeah.
Chris, where can everyone find your stuff?
As always, you can find me on gambling.com, poking around. Perhaps, John, by the end of the summer, I'll be joining you and Mr. Covenbtry on RotoWire.
Excellent.
At least that is the tentative plan. And of course, you can always find me on the X at Chirs Whalis DFS. The Nightmare Bears may or may not be coming for Toronto tonight. Nobody really knows. Bet the under in that game, please. Toronto can't score. Boston can't score. Austin Matthews, who knows what's going on? Nobody does. It's like the ultimate. It's worse than where's Carmen, San Diego. It actually is. It's kind of a developing, unfortunate story, no matter how it turns out. So there's that.
Agreed.
The interesting thing is the money line. You might want to lean on Toronto anyway, just to force a Game 7. Just because, look, you want comic relief in this series, you're going to get it. Do I hope for Cinco de Mayo hockey this weekend? Yeah, might get it too. So there's that.
You can find me, at John Ryan Sports #1 on the X, winnable.com/John Ryan Sports, the new website that has tremendous financial backing, by the way, and really has some great plans to really kind of dominate the sports and sports betting world with new analytics, new everything. And it's just really pretty cool to be part of. Also, I will be releasing my Kentucky Derby picks tomorrow, and I love the Kentucky Derby. Why? Because it has 20 horses. And that enables me to really create some interesting superfectas. Now, granted, I've only won one in 8 of the last 8 races. But when you can take, 80-cent bets and tier them into, $80 in total, and you have a chance to possibly win 20 grand, I'm signing up. Anyway, thanks guys for your time. Appreciate it very much. We'll be back here on Tuesday with another edition of the Sports Betting Show. So until then, especially tonight with that Knicks-Sixers game, bet with your head, not over it, and may all the wins be yours.